Welcome to Dynasty Playbook, where we're living the dreamiest. 8 for 12 and 1 touchdown. Living the hype. I'm your host, Drew. You can find me on Twitter at DrewDotsonNFL. With me is my co-host, Tyler. You can find him on Twitter at HBOMIDP. And for the first time, we actually have a guest co-host. Everybody welcome Adam at AdamTZ, or as many of you know him, Sticky Z. How you doing tonight, bud?
Yo, I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah,
It's it's good to have you, man. I feel like it's been way too long in the works for you to get on here.
yeah, I agree. I think Dave tried to get me on, but just didn't really work out then, back in the day.
Yeah, back in the way back, man.
Yeah, it was before you, Tyler. Technically,
Yeah.
I've been here.
Yeah, Sticky's been around for a while. I guess our scheduling conflicts and the way they work out, we just can't quite ever seem to make connections. But we're here. It's late again, but I'm actually feeling kind of vibrant this evening, so let's do this thing.
Yeah, I'm only about 4 monsters in deep, so I guess I'm awake enough to do this. It's midnight. Most of the preseason games for the night are wrapping up. So we're going to talk about it and get all sorts of hype going because all of us here just love preseason hype. It's our favorite thing. And let's start off with the guys who are actually looking good. And I hate that our first bullet point is Jeremy Langford. So I'm not even going to talk about him, and I'm going to let Tyler talk about him.
I didn't watch him. Judging by the Twitterverse, he looked good, and he had a really nice line. I think he had like 80 yards or something, one really nice long run. But everybody that I listened to, save for a couple guys, said that he looked really good in doing so. So evidently Kadeem Carey's on the roster bubble. So it's Forte and Jeremy Langford and Jizzrod, baby. All that Jizzrod. I don't know. Langford, I never did like Langford. I really didn't. He was the definition of a flyer who you hope can get some run if and when the starter goes down. That's all he is, and that's all he's ever going to be to me. So, yay.
Yeah, I mean, if you take out the big run, he didn't really have a nice average, really. He's just going to be perennial backup, I think. Even when Forte leaves, that's it.
Yeah, to me, the things he does well is the same stuff that Forte does well. The only thing he really offers is good work in the passing game. He's doo-doo in the run game, and that means they're essentially going to have to bring in a power runner, and that doesn't really spell good news for fantasy output, so I'm avoiding him, even if he is looking good as people want to tell him. I'm still fading him regardless of how he looks in the preseason. And this is one of those examples where people want to take a preseason performance and start hyping up a guy when it's really contradictory to everything we've seen about him. And I'm not going to completely change my opinion based on, 15 carries, if that.
Yeah. Splash some water on the Jeremy Langford hype. We've effectively diffused that bomb. See? You heard it here first. He sucks.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody heard it here first that he sucked like 6 months ago, but sticking to our guns on this one. And with that, we'll move on to the Eagles wide receiver core. Apparently, Aguilar and Jordan Matthews are looking exceptional tonight. They both had, they didn't have extremely good stat lines, but I don't think either of them played a ton of snaps either. I think they both came off the field after the first team came off. And really, that's kind of what you want to see. You want to see that they're being involved in the offense, and especially considering the fact that Sam Bradford apparently looked like doo-doo the fact that they were still able to produce is a good sign. They did well with Mark Sanchez, who, once Bradford gets injured, is the guy they're going to end up playing with, because it's not going to be Tim Tebow. Let's all just get that thought out of our heads right now. It shows that they're developing a decent rapport, so I'm pretty excited. I mean, these are Aguilar and J-Matt are guys that we've been all about for this whole draft season, and J-Matt all of last draft season, so I'm good.
Yeah, and the word out of camp is that J-Matt's catching everything, dominating the joint practices, just doing work. J-Matt's just going to be Mr. Consistent. And what I've seen of Aguilar, he looks like exactly who we thought he was. Super sharp, in and out of his breaks, nice hands. I did see one play, and Waz pointed this out, and I was actually watching it when he pointed it out. He makes a nice catch, heads to the sideline, and I guess he thinks he's going to get pushed out. He kind of gives up on the play, and the guy just rips the ball out of his hands. So that's a little bit of a rookie mistake, but he still made the play. I mean, he's just a nice wideout. Really, really like Nelson Aguilar. Love J-Matt. I think that offense is going places. So we'll just have to see how it goes, and hopefully Riley Cooper just gets thrown in the trash bin at some point. And we'll just move on from this whole Riley Cooper thing. He caught a few touchdowns one week a few years ago, so let's just move on. Turn it over to the two young guys, let them do their thing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to agree. I mean, all the camp news is great. I think it's nice to see that they're both like coexisting together. I think a lot of people were worried about, is it over for one guy? Not that it's over, but is it just, can they both be at the same team and both produce? And I think it's nice to see, even in the preseason, they both had lots of targets and lots of receptions. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. I really am. You go through this whole process, and it's like, yeah, here we go.
No, you live in Philly. Are you an Eagles guy? Are you an Eagles fan?
Yeah, I'm Eagles. I mean, I've been Eagles even before I lived here. Some people hate Chip Kelly. I was talking to somebody today, and they're like, "Oh, Chip Kelly's no good," and I love it. I mean, you get guys that are not just they're great players, but they're great. They have great attitudes, and they just want to win. They want to do whatever it takes to be a part of the team, and I think that's what maybe it was a reach to take Aguilar where they took him, but I'm happy. I'm so happy. I just cannot wait for the season to start.
So that's kind of where I'm at with Chip Kelly. Whether you agree or disagree with what he's doing, that dude's going to whip it out and flop it on the table. He's not scared. The dude, he will do what he thinks is the right move, and he's not afraid of any backlash or anything. I just hope that he has a long enough leash to see his plan to fruition. Because if things go poorly, the old Philly sports fans, they're a happy group of individuals. They're going to run him out of the country if things don't go the right way, I'm afraid.
Yeah, they'll tell you, they'll tear you up no matter who you are. But I think he does have actually a pretty long leash. A lot of people say that he's out next year if it doesn't work out, but I think they give him the old Harvard go, as they say, or whatever that saying is. But I think he gets a good run at it, and I'm all about it. I think this is going to be a great year for the Birds.
Yeah, I love what Chip Kelly is doing. I think it's awesome that somebody's kind of bucking the established, thought that, you need to do everything the exact same way that everyone else is doing it. It kind of just leads to this prevailing thought of complacency. You get Jeff Fishers who are fine with going 7-9 and 8-8 every year, and never take a risk, never take a chance, and they just do the same things over and over again. And the coaches that they develop do the same things, and nobody goes for it on fourth down if it's the right call. Nobody, attempts to, run faster plays like Chip's doing. Nobody tries new things because they're so afraid that it's going to cost them their job. Chip Kelly's willing to kind of put his neck out there and try and do something different. And he did the same thing in Oregon, and it worked for him. And I'm really hoping it works for him here, because it could really set the league on fire and inspire a lot of teams to hire young coaches and really inspire a whole new attitude and change of direction in how teams are coached and how they're handled. Because it's not just in his play calling that he changes things; it's how he handles conditioning and practice, and every aspect of the team is radically different than the Tom Coughlin method. And I think it's pretty cool. I really want him to succeed, and I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but F him. And as far as Aguilar might have been a reach, that is incorrect. Aguilar wouldn't have been a reach at 10th overall, so let's just get that thought out of there right now. If they had taken him over Parker, I would have been okay. If Parker had gone at 10th overall, Aguilar needed to go at 9th overall. No bias.
None.
And with that, we'll move on to another player that I have no bias towards whatsoever, Brandon Cooks, who had a pretty good day today. He had 4 receptions, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. He was actually playing with Drew Brees today as opposed to with McCown and everybody like he did in the first week. He was playing with the first team when he got these receptions. He's looking good. I don't have to spend 15 minutes talking about it. I feel like I do that every week. So it's what I expected. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, dude's legit. Period. He's gonna produce this year. He's gonna produce for 10 more years. Just a very, very nice young player. And Drew is he's doing that thing in South Park where they go into the cable company. You know what I'm
Farmer
talking
Fran.
about? Farmer Fran. It's like, oh yeah, tell me more.
Oh, Esquipialdo.
So, yeah, the Brandon Cooks hype train. It left the station a hell of a long time ago around here, and Drew was the conductor. So he's pulled me onto the station. I'm slowly acquiring more Brandon Cooks shares. I love the kid. He's just an explosive little package, man. He's a nice player.
I wish I had more Brandon Cooks. I mean, his ADP is high. I think it's actually deserving. And I mean, he caught every target, which is pretty great. I mean, I know it's Drew Brees, but PPR is great. He's gonna be nice. I don't know, wide receiver 1. I don't think so, really, for his whole career. I mean, he's not gonna blow it out of the water, but I think he's gonna be probably a very top tier wide receiver 2. I think. I mean, he's just gonna be a machine that you can count on, which is pretty much all you want in fantasy.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into it, but I think it's pretty established that I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1. I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 as early as this year because I think he's got that kind of potential. I think, we've seen what Drew Brees can do with an elite pass catcher like Jimmy Graham, and I think Cooks has upside higher than Jimmy Graham. And there's really cool reports that have been coming out recently that Cook spent the summer kind of making relationships with wide receivers in the NFL that are either former players or current players, and essentially gaining mentors. And this includes Steve Smith, who, I'm not a fan of it, but if anybody knows how to be a small receiver and succeed in the NFL, it's Steve Smith. He's reached out to Antonio Brown. They trained together. They worked together during the offseason. And Randy Moss. He worked with Randy Moss for a couple weeks during the offseason. And Randy Moss had some pretty nice things to say about him as well. So I'm kind of really way too invested right now. And if he fails, you might just never see me again. I'm way too emotionally invested at this point.
I don't think he fails. I don't think it's possible at this point.
I don't either.
And I don't mean wide receiver 1. I just mean fantasy. I mean, I don't know. It's tough to be the top 10, top 12 scorer. That's tough. You got to be elite.
And that's the thing. I think he's going to be elite. I think he's going to be in that conversation every year. And if he's not, I mean, even if he is a high-end wide receiver too, that's still, for 10 years, I'll take it, because the guys who can run good routes and have solid hands, they don't degrade because they've just been beat up like these big old guys who take huge hits every other snap. If he can be quick and avoid getting hit, then he's going to last longer.
So are you now the opposite of team big wide receiver?
Negative. I can see the benefits of both sides. I mean, wide receivers are clearly more optimal red zone targets. Cooks is not going to be the better red zone target. If he's making touchdowns, chances are he's going to get there on yards after the catch, not because he's making the catch in the red zone, except for on, design plays where they're tricking the defense, not because he outjumped, a 6'1" cornerback.
You're right. And the smaller guys do tend to hold up. I mean, Steve Smith, 486 years old, still in the league, still produced last year. So
Jerry Rice, he didn't retire but like 3 years ago.
God, he played forever.
And a day. I mean, he was in his 40s when he played his last snaps. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm in no way saying that Brandon Cooks is going to be Jerry Rice, but I'm just saying there's an established precedent for the smaller wide receivers lasting longer. Look at Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles has maintained his explosiveness into his age 33 season, and look at Steven Jackson. Look how quickly he fell off when he hit 30, and he was one of the best running backs in the league for a long, long time.
And that wasn't that long ago. 3 years ago. S. Jackson was still killing people.
It's because he was a bruiser.
Mm-hmm.
The shifty guys tend to just maintain it longer. And I feel like we've been talking over Adam for a little bit. You got anything to add?
No, I mean, I'm good. I'm content to listen. I don't think Jerry Rice is considered small. He's 6'2". He's pretty big. But that's all I had to say.
I guess I remember him just being in my mind smaller, but
and you can be tall and be shifty. There's no problem with that.
I guess that was kind of ignorant of me, but at the same time, everything I know of Jerry Rice is history. I didn't watch him play. I'm not like Tyler. I didn't watch him as a rookie.
Mm-hmm. Hey. I did watch a lot of Jerry Rice, and I am not a 49er fan. My best friend in the entire world is a diehard 49er fan, and I'm a Bronco fan, always have been. And so that was just kind of a bitter little pill for me to swallow the entire time we were growing up, because the Niners just kicked ass, and then finally the Broncos and Niners meet up in the Super Bowl, and it was just a fleecing. It was so bad. I've gone through some serious Denver ass whoopings in Super Bowls. The Giants, the Skins, the Hawks, the Niners. I mean, there were some bad ones, dude. Like, we didn't even show up. But Jerry Rice was the one constant. Always shredding dudes every single year. You see Adam Harstead put out his, tweets with historical context, and what would Jerry Rice be worth? I think I saw him at one point talking worth 7 or 9 or some crazy number of first-round picks. That's what Jerry Rice's dynasty value would have been at his peak, which is insane.
Yeah, I believe it. And, I mean, you talk about, not being a 49ers fan. At that point, you don't even care. You just appreciate the level of talent in the game. I'm sure Adam, even as a Philly fan, can appreciate just how talented OBJ is. Me, as a Saints fan, I can appreciate just how good Julio Jones is. And I'm not saying any of these guys are on that Jerry Rice tier, but they're top-level wide receivers, and you can appreciate, just what they do for the game.
Yeah, definitely as a fan of the game, you just have to. You see somebody go out there and just completely. I mean, these are grown men, and they're just one of them's one. Whatever. There's a certain group that just dominate, and you're like frick, these guys are good. You can't help but love it, even if they torch your team.
Yeah, I mean, just they go out there and they make these other grown men look like children. They look like they're not even playing the same game, and seeing that level of dominance and talent is, I feel like it's why we all love the game, and I mean it's why I got into the game in the first place. Deuce McAllister, I mean he's not the epitome of running back talent, but as a 11, 12-year-old, I thought he was the man, and it's why I love the game now, because just watching him just run over dudes was just so cool. And I feel like it's why we all, you know, love the game as much as we do. Super went off tangent there.
I'm giving you a thumbs up and shaking my head, but you can't see me.
Well, you can see Banana Phone Adam.
Banana phone. I've actually been shaking my head a lot, and I feel stupid now.
I seriously can't believe just how far off we went just talking about Brandon Cooks. But, I mean, I could talk about him for days.
Yeah.
And speaking of wide receivers I can talk about for days, how about Allen Robinson getting 9 targets through 2 games just on first-team reps? It clearly shows they're going to use him in this offense. He's going to be awesome. Like we've been saying all along, and I'm not one of those guys that likes to toot his own horn, so I'm not going to sit here and just congratulate ourselves being right, but I'm so stoked to watch Allen Robinson tear it up. This guy is, I keep saying wide receiver 1, but I think if he reaches his max potential, I could see him outscoring Brandon Cooks, and we know how much I love Brandon Cooks. And because he's got the touchdown upside.
He's got that 6'3", 220 with insane ball skills and great body control when he's in the air. He's got all that going for him, and he's going to be a target monster. And we love target monsters. That's the one stat that I pay the most attention to in fantasy, especially like when I'm setting my lineups during the season. If a guy's getting consistent targets, he's going to stay in my lineup. And Allen Robinson is going to do things with his targets. They're not just going to be Justin Hunter targets where he's getting 8 or 10 of them and they're clanging off his hands or God knows what's happening there. They're going to be productive targets. A-Rob has a real chance to – his value is already really high. And a lot of people that I respect say his value is way too high. I disagree, but I also think his value could shoot up even higher, and I think it will shoot up even higher. I think we're looking at a potential first-round startup pick, this time in the year. I really, really do. It could go the other way, but I think we're looking at a 1. He profiles like a 1. He's got all the skills of a 1. He's in a good situation. Jacksonville, this isn't the Jacksonville of old. This team will be turning it around within the next few years, and they've got a nice core to build with. A young quarterback who was atrocious last year, but come on, he's gonna progress. Bortles will get better. Bortles is a good athlete. He's an underrated athlete. He's a good quarterback, and A-Rob's gonna be his BFF forever. And I just hope they include me in their BFFness because I want to be A-Rob's best friend.
Yeah, I don't know if we could go on and on and on about A-Rob. I just love him so much too, and his comp is, on Player Profiler, his comp is Dez. It's there. So, targets, that's huge it's gonna be huge for him, and I like Bortles. I went to UCF, I watched Bortles for all his years there, and I think he's much better than he gets a lot of credit for, and he had a shit line. And they did a little bit. They got 2 guards and a tackle. It's gonna be better. He had led the league in sacks. You can't show what you're doing if you're on the ground. So I think I'm with everybody else. That A-Rob is very high now, and he has room to grow and get in now. Like whatever it costs, Well, not whatever it costs, but if you can get a nice deal that may seem like an overpay, it's probably a good idea at this point.
Pay up. If I want a guy, I'm going to pay for him. If I really want a guy, I'm not afraid to overpay. I'm not afraid to undersell. I'm not afraid to overpay. I don't really care. I want guys on my team that I like. And A-Rob's one of those guys. And if I got to pay the going rate or a little bit more, I'll pay it. Because I think it's going to increase. Not necessarily. I'm not even necessarily worried about value. I'm worried about, is this guy going to be on my roster for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years? Is he going to be a guy I'm plugging in as my wide receiver 1, 2, 3, whatever the case may be for the next several years? And I think he's that guy. So just seeing him getting this amount of targets in very short time, it's just a sign of things to come. I hate to read too much into the preseason, but come on. They're not going to feed Marquise Lee. Alan Hearns is a nice young player, but they're not going to feed him. Julius Thomas is I don't like Julius Thomas. I almost went there, but let's not go there. He's going to break in half. So it's the A-Rob show. And they also drafted a nice running back who we kind of like around here too, who we think is going to take a little bit of the load off.
Yeah, completely agree. And we talk about not wanting to read too much into the preseason, and I think this is one of those areas where you're actually gleaning information from the preseason is appropriate, because they're trying to imitate what their first team reps are going to look like, and they're feeding targets to Allen Robinson. I feel like that's something that is really telling, and we should be able to take some information from that. And speaking of Bortles' atrocious rookie season, go back and look at those first couple of weeks when he was on the field, when he first got the starting gig. He looked really serviceable. He did not look nearly as bad as he did by the end of the season. He started getting that David Carr syndrome by the end of the season because he had just been hit over and over and over again. And it just got worse as the season went on. He progressively got worse. That's not something you normally see. And hopefully he gets more confidence behind his line. Having a more solid run game is going to make them respect the passing game more. They're not just going to bum rush him every time he steps back. And I feel like he's going to be able to, actually stand in the pocket and deliver some passes, unlike the end of the year last year. We should actually be able to see what he's made out of, which hopefully is more than what we saw in week 15 of last year. Because based on what we saw last year, it was made out of a paper sack of dog doo-doo. And with that, we'll move on to another guy that we are just kind of fans of around here. I feel like this is just the circle jerk hour where we talk about guys that we like.
This is turned into the fanboy playbook, but fuck it. Let's do it.
David Johnson looked fantastic tonight. He was running between the tackles. He was following his blocks. He was making something out of nothing, doing essentially what everyone said he couldn't do. We've said it all along. We've said that he's a better Andre Ellington, and he's proven it. He's going out there and showing that he can do everything Andre Ellington can do, and he's a better pass catcher. He's a better route runner. He can do everything Andre Ellington can do. Plus, this guy is going to tear up your fantasy rosters. And if you haven't gotten your hands on him, it's about to be too late.
Yeah, I think today is a little too late. I mean, he went, where'd he go, 210, 209 in a rookie draft I just did. And, I mean, there was a few auto picks in there, so he probably would have went a lot higher. But, I mean, now's the time to get in. I mean, I wrote a piece on him for DLF, I don't know, beginning of August, and it's been the acquire show for me because I want him everywhere. I think that, I mean, I said it, Ellington's bad, and David Johnson is a better Andre Ellington. I mean, he's bigger, he's going to make it through the season, he can catch better, and I mean, he might not be a shifty, but, I mean, that's not what I mean, it's good for the NFL, but you need to through the tackles, you need to be able to to take all the punishment that comes with being a running back, and David Johnson's got it. Before we go too long on him.
And that's about all we got on that one. We'll move on to one more player. Mark Ingram had a nice 29-yard reception in today's game, which kind of just furthers the point that if Spiller's not playing, then Mark Ingram will be used in the passing game, and he's shown that he's very capable of at least filling some portion of the role. Even, he's not going to be Spiller. That's just an unrealistic expectation, but he's more than capable of, doing what Pierre Thomas used to do to some extent. He's obviously not going to get 70 receptions, but he can be a 3-down back for New Orleans, and you should draft him like he's going to be. Don't draft him in the first round of your redraft leagues. I'm not going that far, but don't treat him like he's going to be some 2-down thumper, because he's capable of more than that.
I really like Mark Ingram this year, with Spiller or without. I think what you're going to get with Mark Ingram is you're going to get Alf Morris plus. That's kind of what I think of when I think of Ingram, is in a similar tier, at a similar price, but a better player that's going to produce better on the box score and on your roster. He's almost guaranteed to catch more passes than Alf, and he's a better runner than Alf in a better offense against really bad defenses. So I love Mark Ingram's. I like his short term a little bit better than his long term, but I like both just fine. And Mark Ingram, you're probably able to get him. I don't know what the ADP is, but I'm going to guess you're going to be able to get him at RB 2.5, RB 3 prices. It's beautiful. He's still pretty damn young. What is he, 25, 26 years old?
I think he's 26.
It seems like he's been around forever and a day, but he's still got a lot of tread on those tires. So I really like Mark Ingram right now. And Spiller is, how big of a concern is Spiller really? Really, what's the realistic expectations? Even if Spiller hadn't got a hurt, of how many games Spiller would play? 10, 12? Let's just call it what it is. CJ Spiller just doesn't stay healthy. So very explosive player. Nice PPR back, but it's the Ingram show as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Ingram's 25. He's going to be 26 at the end of the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he's a great buy right now. Is he injury prone? I don't know. Don't really know what that means anymore. I'm not really worried about it. You can't bet on injuries unless it's like a Kyle Rudolph or someone like that. CJ Spiller. That's a good one. Get him at like 52nd overall. That's awesome for a starting running back on a high-powered offense. What they bring in, they fixed the line. They brought 2 new linemen in, some good ones too. It's the changes in the cards for Ingram. I think excellent buy right now.
Yeah, I think the Alf Morris comparison is gross, though. I prefer to think of him as like a Lamar Miller plus. Alf Morris feels gross.
I like Morris. So.
You know what we're talking about, though. We're talking about guys that aren't typically receiving backs. That's where I'm going. And the poster child for guys that don't catch a lot of passes, that's Alf Morris. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. I guess we could comp him to Chris Ivory. You want to do that? We can do that.
No, because neither of them can catch passes.
I'll just give Mocker a freaking heart attack over here.
It's not like they don't. It's like, think of a running back that can catch passes, but the offense isn't designed to give it to him. That's kind of what I think of Lamar Miller. They don't get him involved in the passing game extremely often. But he's more than capable of doing it. Whereas, if you throw a football at Alfred Morris, he doesn't know what to do.
I'll just sit in my corner. I'll sit in Alfred Morris' corner, and I'll be the one guy on his side. I think he catches like more than 25 balls this year.
That's borderline hot take.
That's more than lukewarm. That's tepid. That's a tepid take.
That's a tepid take. I love it.
And Alfred Morris looks like DeAndre Hopkins compared to Chris Ivory.
I don't even know what to do with that. I don't even know.
I watched Chris Ivory for years. If you throw a football at Chris Ivory, he's going to turn around and run away. He doesn't do it. He doesn't know what you're doing when you throw the ball. You're supposed to put it in his hands from your hands. If it's not touching hands in between, you've lost him. And speaking of bad, let's talk about some other players that were bad today. We already talked about Sam Bradford being bad. Apparently they tried to have him run the read option. I'm pretty sure the last time he did that was Oklahoma, and I don't even think he did it that much there.
Well, it's bad with a caveat. He looked okay I think he had one series. I think he had 5 attempts, something like that. But the idea of Sam Bradford running the read option is laughable. Absolutely laughable. Because he's no threat to run at all. None. And he will get killed. Absolutely killed. Because you can tee off on him. In that situation. He is not, doesn't have the quarterback cocoon around him that the rule books give him when he's dropping back to throw. So, yeah, the old Bradford running the read option is not going to work.
Would you rather have Bradford running or Nick Foles running?
Oh, shit. Napoleon Dynamite running the naked bootleg, that went well. Foles was...
He's slow.
God, he's so slow.
Okay, all right. So would you rather have Bradford or Mark Sanchez running?
I think Sanchez is a better quarterback. I really do, and especially within the context of that system.
I just don't. I think Bradford runs the best.
Yeah, but
I would rather have either of them over Bradford because either of them can take a hit from a linebacker.
That's fair.
And then get up and walk away.
Well, Bradford could take a hit from My Little Pony and shatter into 2,500 pieces.
Hey, man,
that's what's going to happen.
They got smoothies now. Okay, they'll be fine.
I guess we'll see how that plays out. If they keep Bradford in the pocket, I still like him as a fantasy option. But if they've got him running around, it's going to be Michael Vick party. He's going to go down in like week 2, and so then Mark Sanchez is going to have to play.
Yeah, and when that happens, I won't have to eat my hat. What was it? If Bradford plays 16, I got to eat my hat?
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's... Ooh, I don't even think I could do that.
Why would you take that? That's terrible.
It's just what I do.
Tyler's got a lot of hat bets, so I'm going to have to go back and listen to like every episode he's done and keep track of all the hats he's going to have to eat.
It just comes out of my mouth. Like, I swear, if this happens, I will eat my hat. And the next thing you know, I've said it 5 times, and whew, it's not good. It's not good. I got a few Stephen Ridley bets out there.
Boy.
That's not going to end well.
You got to get some edible hats.
Ugh.
If you boil the brim, though, I wonder if it gets softer. It's easier to chew.
Oh, God.
Obviously not easier to digest, though. That's going to be rough.
That's the part that I'm worried about most. I mean, I think I could choke it down, but...
You can throw up. That's fair. You ate it.
No. That's cheating.
Gotta keep it down. To help you.
All right, let's move on to... In between our hat-eating takes, let's talk about Jerick McKinnon, who had a poor rushing stat line, actually had a decent reception in the game, but I didn't get a chance to watch it, so I don't know if this was a product of the offensive line being poor or Jerick McKinnon not doing well, but overall it's either way it's not really good for him. If he can't run behind a poor offensive line, then either way, it's not good for him.
Yeah, and this is just going off just his stat line. I just remember seeing it and thinking, I don't even remember what it was, but it was bad. But I still like Jerick McKinnon quite a bit as a dynasty running back because he's cheap. He's playing behind, how old's AP, 30, 31?
I think he's 30.
30.
He's not going to last forever. He hadn't been on the field. What has he played? 3, 4, 5 games cumulatively in the last 18 months, 24 months? Not very many. So McKinnon's time's coming. He's one of those metric marvels. And he also looked good when he got some run last year before he got hurt. I mean, he looked damn good. He looked like the heir apparent. So still like McKinnon. It is a little bit troublesome to see that kind of stat line. You know, I know we said it's preseason, but if we can hype a guy up for doing well in the preseason, we got to be able to take the bad with the good. And I'd like to go and see what happened, but I'm going to suspect it's not very pretty.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about McKinnon. I want to believe. I think he's someone that if you have, you're keeping, and you just gotta be patient. And that's really all I think I have on that.
Yeah, and I think Breeze said it best. You know, you talk about you want to be able to hype guys up off the preseason. Honestly, I think poor performances of the preseason speak much louder than good performances. That was his point, and I completely agree with it. You know, if you can't even show that you can perform when you've already got a locked-in roster spot, it's not a high-pressure situation, and you still are not performing, that can cause some concerns. Granted, you know, I'll give it more weight if he does it 2 weeks in a row, but it's definitely cause for concern, at least to some degree, when somebody does so poorly like he did. And with that, we'll move on to a guy that is near and dear to Tyler's heart, Jordan Hicks, who is apparently the worst linebacker in the league. He makes Paul Warlow look like Luke Kuechly. Tyler, how do you feel about that?
He was so bad tonight, dude. I watched quite a bit of that game. It was bad, man. He looked scared. He looked timid. He looked indecisive. He didn't have that explosion. I don't know what's going on. And this is 2 weeks in a row that he's looked bad. I remember saying something about it last week. I'm like, I don't want to believe that, because I had him as I think I had him as my number 5 rookie linebacker, off-ball linebacker in this class. I don't know, man. Somebody needs a lot of fire under his ass, because they're going to watch that film tomorrow. And I hope their linebacker coach is a mean dude and rips him to shreds, because he looked terrible. He wasn't scraping. He was backing up. He was receiving blockers. He was missing the gap. He wasn't shooting. It was rough to watch. I mean, it was really rough to watch. And that's not the player that I know. That's not the player that I've seen. Yeah, he has his flaws, and he has had these flaws, but his athleticism and his instinct and his ability to play with a high motor is something that I've always loved, and that's not the player that I saw tonight or last week. So I'm a little bit concerned to see that, especially when he's running with the 2s and the 3s against the 2s and the 3s. I thought he would go out there and just shred these guys. I really did. I thought he had the ability to take over against subpar talent, which is what he's going up against right now, and he is not. He's going to find himself buried on that depth chart if he's not careful. It was always going to be a wait and see situation with him. You know, he never was going to crack into that starting lineup with Kiko and Kendricks and D'Amico and all that they've got going on there. He wasn't ever going to be a good play in the short term, but if he doesn't get his shit together, he's going to find himself on the end of the bench. And I am more than a little bit worried after having watched him, because he got extended snaps. He got a lot of snaps.
Well, that scares me if you're worried, because, I mean, you know your stuff. So, I mean, I didn't watch the game, so I was not around, but I wish I did. But I didn't watch it, so I can't really say too much about him. I mean, he's a third-round pick.
Yeah.
I think he has great potential, but right now I'm a little worried about him. I think he's a nice, cheaper IDP buy. You know, get the Kendrickses and the Anthonys out of there. So he was kind of someone you could pick up later. But especially with Marcus Smith doing all the great things that he's done, and now he's injured for a few weeks. So I'm a little worried too. So thanks for that. Now I'm sad.
We can worry together because I promise you I'll be sadder than you. Jordan Hicks is, and in his time at the University of Texas was just marred by injury. But when he was on the field, he was legit. And when he came out of high school, we're talking 5-star, #1 linebacker in the country out of Ohio. Everybody wanted Jordan Hicks, and he was that good. I don't know what we're seeing. Maybe he's having trouble with the scheme. Maybe he's tentative because he doesn't want to make mistakes. I don't know what's going on, but he needs to cut it loose and just be him. Maybe he's got some lingering injuries and he's trying to play through it. I don't know what's going on. It was rough, man. I can't even describe to you guys how bad he looked. It gives me all the sads.
Do you guys run a 3-4 at Texas?
No, I mean it's a multiple D, but he was pretty much just like a will. You know, it would kind of be what I would describe what he played, which is not all that different than like what he's going to play in that 3-4. He's going to be a weak side inside linebacker.
Yeah, if his preseason continues to look like this, you know, how far are you willing to drop him in your linebacker rankings for the rookies? You know, are you looking to drop him below Quan Alexander? And you know, I know Perriman's not a name you're okay with, and I know, you know, I can't think of, you know, other guys that I would even be okay with putting him below, even with a poor showing. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to put him below Perryman because, God, Perryman. If Hicks looked bad, Perryman looked even worse, and Perryman's a worse player. So that's never even going to get close for me. If I had to rank him right now, Quan's moving ahead of him. McKinney's moving ahead of him. Jake Ryan's staying behind him. You know, he just didn't look good, man. And I didn't think it was going to be this big of a project. I thought his projection was bad because of competition. Situation was bad. It is bad. But he's going to have to get it together. I've got faith because I know who he is. I know the kind of player he is. I've got faith that it's going to get put together, but it may take a little bit longer than I thought. And he's not the youngest guy. I mean, we're talking a guy that redshirted twice. You know, he's not a kid. He's not one of these 20, 21-year-old kids coming out of college. So we're gonna see how it goes. I need to put pen to paper. I got to get my rankings done next week, and I'm curious to see where I'm gonna end up slotting him. But I don't know, man. It's hard for me to remove that bias because I watched him so much. But I do know his weaknesses and I do know his strengths, and the strengths outweigh the weaknesses still. But oof, not good.
yeah, if it's coming down to the start of the season, and you know, you're looking at waiver wire pickups in the at the start of the season, how big is your roster that you have to where you actually keep them on your roster?
You always did have to have deep rosters to have a guy like him. And we're going to go ahead and throw Quan in there because we didn't know what Quan was going to do. Ramik Wilson, guys like that. You always needed to be in the 55-ish range to stash a guy like that. And he was always going to be towards the bottom of your roster. So I'm going to have a little bit more patience. And he's going to be a guy that I'm going to want to hold all year long unless things just completely derail. But we're not going to know what's going to happen in season because we're not going to get to see what he's doing in season because he's not going to play. He's going to play a lot of special teams and probably be damn good at it. But he's not going to get snaps in the base defense and the sub packages unless something happens and somebody gets hurt.
No, and I guess that's the concern is after the preseason, we're not going to have anything else on them, and you're going to have to wrestle with those end-of-the-roster spots for waiver pickups. And obviously in 60, 65 roster spot leagues, it's a lot easier to drop guys because by the end of the preseason, some of the guys you're holding as flyers are getting dropped off NFL teams. They're just going to be free agents, so they immediately, you know, become the fodder. But in your 55-man rosters where it's tighter in your 50-man rosters. You know, if a poor preseason is all you have to go off of, it becomes harder because you're not going to see more. You're not going to have more to go off of, and if he's going off on a bad note, you're going to have a sour taste in your mouth. It's really hard to keep the faith.
Yeah. Yep. I got a feeling he's gonna test us. I really, really want to watch him the next 2 games and see what he does. It's gonna be huge, at least for my own personal evaluation, to see where he improves, if he improves. So we just beat that into the ground, didn't we? I'm so sad.
Yeah,
And with that, I guess we'll all be sad. And we'll move on to the Ravens wide receivers who, when they're bad, it doesn't make me sad because Brashad Perriman and Steve Smith don't make me sad. They were bad today. I didn't watch that game, but apparently they were bad today.
Well, they're not even playing. It's just a cast of nobodies.
Mhm.
You know, Darren Waller caught a touchdown. That was pretty cool.
I think it's just tough to find the value. I mean, I picked up Aiken in a league thinking, he was getting first team reps, and it's worth nothing now, and I thought I picked the wrong. I was been buying Waller everywhere, but I mean, DeAndre Carter had at least 3 receptions on 5 targets. I mean, I don't know. It's just tough right now. It's tough to pick a guy and say, all right, this is the dude.
Yeah,
It's got to be somebody. They need people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be someone.
It's so sketchy because, I mean, this little Perryman injury it's been kind of cryptic as to what's really going on with him, but the dude hadn't practiced for shit. And you got Aiken, Campanaro. I like Michael Campanaro. He's a nice little slot receiver, but that's all he is. Marlon Brown's 6'5". He made a really nice catch tonight, and so Waller caught a touchdown. You got Carter, and it's a complete jumbled mess that outside of deep rosters or best balls where you can stack 2, 3, 4 of them on the cheap, stay away. Just avoid it. Go get Waller and stash him on your taxi squad, but everybody else can just piss off.
Yeah, you mentioned Campanaro and just bringing up the fact that he's a slot receiver. But that's not always necessarily a bad thing. There have been a fair amount of productive slot receivers in the NFL. And Campanaro, I didn't watch this game, but I watched him in the game last week, and he looked good. He's a guy, if I've got the roster spots, he's one of the ones, along with Waller, that I'm willing to stash by himself. Other than that, I want to get the whole crew together and stash them as a bunch because taking single shots is kind of a waste of time there.
There's no definition. Just none. I do think Campanero's going to – I think he's going to be the punt returner. So that could add a little bit of value in the return yard leagues. And it also tells you what they think of him as an athlete. He's a damn good athlete. But overall, the whole receiver core right now is just, meh. You want a meh? There's a meh.
It's a meh.
Right there in Baltimore. It's bad, man. It's going to be the Justin Forsett show, dudes. Justin Forsett is going to wreck shop this year.
And Crockett Gilmore.
Crockett Gilmore, our buddy Crockett Gilmore, going catfishing with Crockett Gilmore down at the creek.
Good luck finding a crick in Baltimore.
If you find a creek that's got radioactive waste floating down it and dead politicians floating in the water.
I was born there. I know what it's like.
I'm sorry.
It's terrible.
That was me.
Well, he's in the north. I'm sorry that he lives anywhere there.
Yeah.
Must be awful.
It's all right.
Hot takes.
We can fire that one back up again. That went well the other day. The old North versus South debate. That was awful.
Me and Pat had a good time with that.
I know you did. Y'all two were just really sowing your oats there.
Y'all two?
I told Pat he was Stalin.
It was Pat and Drew and then Crabman chiming in every now and then to just rip either one of them or both at the same time. Voxer is great, by the way. If any of you guys listen to the show don't have Voxer, get all your buddies together in a Voxer group. It's fantastic.
I was a defector. I did not like the Vox, but now I love it. It's great.
I love it when I wake up in the morning and I got 140 notifications, and you got Breeze and Tim talking about God knows what at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then you got Pat's, midnight drunken rants. It's awesome.
Yep. And with that, let's do something productive and move on to our college player discussion for the week. And it's time that we talked about one of my guys, and that's Tyler Boyd. 6'2", 200, true junior out of Pitt. Guy's 21 years old, and he's the best. Depending on how everything works out with his DUI and if it causes character concerns with the NFL, if he's drafted highly enough, he's my 101. If he slips a little bit in the draft, he's my 102 after Zeke Elliott, but he is my number one wide receiver, barring a catastrophic fall in the NFL draft. I am all about this guy. His just every movement is super smooth. His hands are consistently just on point. He's got these super soft hands, and you rarely see a drop from him. The tape I watched, the only drops he made were 2 overthrown passes that he still gave up his whole body trying to catch, and they still just glanced off his fingertips. This guy is for real. His major issue is when he's got the ball in the open field, if he's not already in stride, when he encounters a defender, he tends to get a little happy feet. He starts to dance a little bit. But if he's got one step, if he's already in stride at all, he's blowing past that defender. But if he stopped, getting back from that starting position is where he has that issue. He doesn't have that super quick first step. That's the biggest hole in his game, in my opinion. He's a super solid run blocker, more than willing to engage the defender, and it's going to keep him on the field as a rookie. It's going to get him a ton of snaps, and I'm all about this guy. I could just go on and on about him, but I guess we'll get a little bit of ice on this fire. Tyler, what do you
I like him. He's a damn good receiver. He reminds me, and I said this a long time ago, he's Devontae Parker in his movements. He's smooth like Devontae Parker, but he wins where Devontae Parker doesn't a lot of times. So Boyd, to me, just like Drew said, he is silky smooth. He's a long strider. He gets in and out of his breaks clean, and once he is moving, he's moving. He's gone. The dude can fly. I don't know that I necessarily like him any better or worse than Mike Williams or Duke Williams. I like both those guys quite a bit. I think they're both more physical than Boyd is, and I know Treadwell's more physical than Boyd is. So, we're still talking about an elite prospect, but I'm not ready to vault him to the top, just yet. He's still got another full year. There's a lot of tape out on him, and it's all really good tape. This just kept bringing us full circle to the fact that this 2016 class is good. The fact that we're already able to split hairs about guys that would slot in directly behind Amari Cooper and probably ahead of Kevin White. 3, 4, 5 guys that play wide receiver already is pretty nutty, because this is a pretty good wide receiver class in its own right. It's top heavy, but it's a pretty good class. But this bunch coming in next year is great. And Boyd's going to be right at the top. We're still very early in the process, but right now I would probably rank him as my 2. But it's a very thin 2. There's a bigger difference between him and Treadwell than there is between him and Duke Williams for me.
I guess I will start with a caveat. I don't really watch a lot of tape. I watch not as much as I should, but I do watch a little bit, so I'm maybe not as good as you guys are at evaluating players. I'm going to start with saying that I know you guys talked about him like 2 weeks ago now. James Conner is really good, and that helps the pass game a lot because he's a machine and amazing. I thought that Boyd caught really well in traffic. I thought he goes up and just snags it, which is great. He catches like perfectly. I mean, away from his body, it looks great. A lot of the tape I saw, he would just eat the zone. If you had a zone on him, he just would find the hole and just crush it, which was awesome. I think he had good yards after the catch. I mean, they put him in space and he would get some nice yardage there. It wasn't like a Demaryius Thomas amazing, but I thought it was really good. I could be wrong on all this stuff because I don't really watch a lot of tape yet. I mean, I want to watch more. He had nice effort on the ball. He'd go up and put his body at risk to get the ball, which is good. So those are my likes. And I mean, I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. Dislikes, I actually totally disagree. I know it's crazy on the podcast with Drew, but I thought his blocking was lazy. I thought when he engaged, it was good, but he would just walk up to the guy and be like, oh, okay, sorry. And then that was the guy who would get Connor. And if that guy didn't get Connor, that dude was going for a touchdown a lot of times, is what I saw. And I didn't see him in too much press coverage, so that was kind of something I would like to see more of. I didn't think they pressed him too much, which is some people like press, some people don't, whatever. And I put that I didn't think he was electric with the ball. I didn't think that he gets the ball and it's like, okay, this guy is we gotta be careful, which may be something that comes with experience from watching tape, because you watch a lot of highlights and you just see the best plays ever. So that was that. I don't like the returning. Please don't return the ball if you're a good player because that's how you get injured. So forget that. But otherwise, I mean, I haven't looked a lot at the whole class. I think it's a good class from what I've heard from people. I mean, the thing about not being a major tape watcher, not being a good evaluator, is you let the pros do it. You let people who know what they're talking about or sound like they know what they're talking about do it. So I respect other people's opinions more than my own, which is something that some people like fantasy, some people don't, but this looks like an amazing class, at least in the top of the draft. Some great wide receivers. So if you can get some picks next year, if it's not going so well for you, blow it up. I'm all about it. So that's kind of how I feel about him. I don't know. I like him. I like him a lot. I think he looks like he could be a pro, so that's good. Wouldn't know where to put him, but he looks like he'll be a very good wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're getting at with he doesn't seem electric with the ball. That's kind of where I was getting with, when he dances. If you get him, and from a dead stop, he's not electric at all. He has a tough time getting started. But he does tend to be electric. If you can get him in stride, he's a danger to take it all the way. So there's pros and cons to it. He's definitely a weapon, but like you said, he's not Demaryius Thomas. He's not gonna make yards after the catch on his own. He needs to have a good rapport with his quarterback if they're gonna use him into his full ability. And I forgot the other point you made, and it's gone.
It's gone. I think it was the blocking, but that's whatever.
That's every wide receiver, man.
Yeah, that's true.
You very rarely see a wide receiver that's just getting after it, Michael Irvin style, trying to whip somebody's ass every play. That's all these college wide receivers do it, and it's obnoxious to watch, but I've gotten to where I just kind of have to tune it out because you can knock every single wide receiver and be like, yep, he's lazy on the backside. You can tell when he's not first option, just very few of them really, really get after it. But once he engaged, he's a good blocker, and he's certainly willing.
Yeah, see, and that's what I saw was when he engaged, he did a very good job of driving back the defender. And there were definitely plays where he was lazy, and it just kind of depended on what the scheme was. They had him behind the O-line engaging a defender, and he worked his butt off driving the rusher back. But when they've got him, 10 yards downfield trying to pick up a blocker, that's when you tend to see the laziness show through. So I guess it's when he doesn't feel he's as essential, that's where it shines through. And I absolutely agree. I would like to see him against press coverage more. And I think part of the reason we didn't see it as much is they don't play him on the line as much as you would think, considering just how good he is. Normally you want somebody that doesn't have as good of a first. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. You want somebody that's stronger, that can handle themselves to be on the line. I don't think he's one of those guys that's gonna, get that first step and be gone. Like Deshaun Jackson, you're gonna play him off the line. He's not Deshaun Jackson. But I don't really know where I was going with that point.
I wrote non-bursty, but I might be more for his size. That he's just not 2 steps and he's like, okay, I'm done now. Like as a corner, like he's gone. But I mean, he's a great player. Like,
I mean, he's fast. He's fast as hell. He's just doesn't have that quick twitch, and that, like I said, that may have to do with just his length, his stride. It's kind of deceptive.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna about do it for Boyd. I heart Boyd. And with that, let's talk about something that's kind of just a general concept that's picked up some steam with the Dynasty community this offseason, and mostly because we've been putting a bunch of steam in it. And that's the idea of points per carry. And it's kind of become commonplace that running backs are losing a lot of equality with your Dynasty rosters. Wide receivers are king. Running backs get generally ignored unless you're Todd Gurley or Le'Veon Bell. Where points per carry, normally a solid scoring is a quarter point per carry. It tends to even the board out more than removing PPR. Removing PPR stifles scoring for everybody rather than encourages scoring for all types. The drafts we've done in it have shown an increased importance on the running back position, and it's really kind of diversified how people draft, and I know it's done it for me, whereas normally I'll ignore the running back position and kind of focus on a few key guys, whereas now it feels like if you ignore the position, you're almost setting yourself up for failure if you pass on it altogether. Zero running back theorem doesn't work as well with points per carry because they score at or above where your wide receivers are going to score. And I want to know where you guys stand on the idea of using it and if you think it's really going to catch on.
Yeah, I really like it. I love zero RB. I don't really like calling it that. I don't like putting a name on what I do, but I'm fine with going into the season with, Jeremy Stewart and Mark Ingram as my 2 backs because, running backs are just not as valuable. So I'll punt a little bit there, but I actually think that I like the points per carry. I think it's great. More points, I'm all about it. Give me more points. I think it actually helps you zero RB a little bit more because you can go later and pick up Alfred Morris in a later round, and he's worth a little bit more. Maybe it'll catch on that the value catches up to the scoring, but I like it a lot. If we could do 1 running back minimum, that would make me real happy, and PPC is good as long as you don't get too crazy with it. It does give the top end guys a lot more, which I think is good and bad. It makes them more valuable, but it also makes them a little overvalued, I think, at some points.
When I first heard the idea, and the first time I saw the quarter point per carry was the Scott Fish Bowls, and I thought, gross. Well, why would we want to do that? Because running backs are icky. But it's fantastic. I love it, and it's kind of a reaction to PPR, which PPR came in vogue because running backs were king. Running backs dominated the landscape. Let's say, okay, well, let's find a way to make wide receivers more relevant. Balance of scoring. So here comes PPR. And now we got variance on PPR. You got, full point, half point, whatever. And at some point, several years later, we start saying, okay, now we got these passing offenses where they're throwing the ball 600-700 times a year. And the counterpoint to that is that running backs are RBBC, and they're not getting the amount of touches. They're not dominating the fantasy landscape. And as dynasty owners especially, we react to that by just saying, screw them. We don't need them because they don't carry long-term value, and they don't even carry that much short-term value because you can win without them. But let's throw this quarter-point PPR or PPC in there, and everything kind of evens back out. So now Le'Veon Bell, and then depending on who you talk to, for me, Le'Veon Bell is not as valuable as Dez Bryant, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, blah, 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 blah. Now throwing this quarter points per carry, all of a sudden Le'Veon Bell might be the most valuable player in that setup because it adds a hell of a lot of points. So, and it raises the floors. That's the big thing. It raises the floors. But I'm a huge fan, and the we set up 2 leagues recently where we're running this points per carry, and the drafts were off the rails. I mean, I drafted Melvin Gordon, for Christ's sake. Didn't see that coming. I didn't think I'd ever draft Melvin Gordon, but I'm like, hell yeah, RB6, 7, wherever I took him, I'm all over some Melvin Gordon. So I really, really like it, and it's just another wrinkle. It keeps things fun. It keeps things fresh. If we can keep adding and changing and evolving, I'm all about it. And I think it's a great thing. And I don't know whether it catches on in general or not, but any leagues that I'm commissioned from here on out, at least for the near future, are going to have that implemented in them because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I like the point that Adam made about, it takes the top tier running backs and adds a ton of value to them. And, you make it seem like, I think the term you used was overvalued. And I actually think it makes them appropriately valued because if you look at startup ADP, the only running back that's really consistently touching the first round is Le'Veon Bell. And then we have, 9 wide receivers, a quarterback, and a tight end normally. And it kind of balances it out to where more running backs are viable in the first round. You have Todd Gurley and Eddie Lacy as potential first-round startup picks. And it levels the playing field. It's like a super flex or a 2 QB league where it gives a position the value it should have. It makes it to where on your roster the positions are more equal. You can't just push it away, push it in the corner, and just pick up anybody and make something happen with them. It gives a player like Le'Veon Bell who can win you your league the value he's supposed to have. He should be competing for the 101 spot, but because of how running backs score normally, he's almost never in contention for that 101 spot. But with the increase, he's strongly in consideration for it. And I think it's a really interesting twist, and it's something that really is going to further the evolution of Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I don't think that I want to take a running back in the first round. I don't care. Even if it was half point, maybe half point per carry, maybe I would. That's a little too much. But at a quarter point, they just, I think it's great because it's building this, like, we're going to make the perfect fantasy football where it models real football as best as we can. We're going to have IDP. The scoring is going to be worthwhile for them. We're going to have points per carry. PPR is not going to be insane. It's going to be half point, which is normal. And we're going to build the perfect model for fantasy football, and that's great. I'm all about that. I just don't think I would ever take a running back with my first pick. I mean, you got to go wide receiver in Dynasty because the longevity is really what you're going for. So.
Yeah, and the longevity definitely comes into play. Definitely. So, I don't even know what the average career span for Le'Veon Bell. What are we looking at? He's played 2 years. What do we got? 4 more years, 5 more years of Le'Veon Bell before we're ready to ride him off?
I'd say probably about 5, maybe 6, depending on how involved he stays in the passing game.
Yeah, so longevity definitely comes into play, and I took Le'Veon in one of these leagues at like, I want to say 107. So it's obviously just wide receivers all the way up to me, and then I'm like, hey, I'm going to do something a little different. I like the scoring. I like the way it fits. And this league was also only requires you to start 2 wide receivers instead of 3, which to me there's a massive difference there. So if I can flex a bunch of running backs, I'm going to flex running backs while I went with Bell there. But I wouldn't have hated whoever else it would have been, Antonio or Dez or whoever it would have been at that spot. Because, Mike and Odell were gone because they're always gone, and I could never get them in startups. But, yeah, I like it a lot. It's another wrinkle. It's just another way to play with the game. And I'm always down for something different, something new. I like to play in as many different formats as I possibly can. And this is a new thing, and I like it. I am a fan.
Yeah, and I can totally see your argument for the longevity, and most of the time I'm siding with you. I'm taking the wide receiver, but I can see the argument for running back more as well, because when you have a guy like Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley that's young and they haven't even technically reached the prime of their career and they're already producing at a top level, and this scoring really makes them shine even brighter than their counterparts, their position. It makes it to where you can take wide receiver later, and the value really lies with the running back early when there's going to be so much wide receiver you can pick up later.
Well, if you're coming out of the gate trying to win, it's gonna. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. But if you're coming out of the gate trying to win, yeah, it's going to make a lot of sense to go running back early. And then it adds a ton of value to the Alf Morris, the Mark Ingram, the Chris Ivory, the thumpers. Because 4 carries, that's a point. A day at the office, that's 5 free points if they get 20 carries. 5 points. That's not insignificant, especially if you're doing that times 3 or 4 or 5, however many flexes you have. It's a lot of points, and they're basically free. Just all he has to do is carry the damn ball. So it's like I say, it's just kind of a counterpoint to PPR for me. That's how I see it. It's the community reacting to the PPR getting a little bit out of hand, and we don't want to ditch the PPR because non-PPR, hell, I'd rather not play at all than play non-PPR, to be perfectly honest.
I would literally rather have someone pull off my toenails than to do a Dynasty Standard League. It sounds miserable. At least pulling off my toenails only lasts for like 20 minutes. And honestly, I don't necessarily agree that taking running back that early, if it's a young player like Gurley or Bell, means that you have to shoot to compete right out the gate. I think that they're young enough, and the scoring it puts them that far ahead of the competition that you can take the young wide receivers later, still punt, and shoot to compete a year or 2 later, and they're still going to be in the prime of their career.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate to have the 2014 class. I think that really changes things because you can take Le'Veon Bell and then take like A-Rob and Jordan Matthews on your next turn and be fine. I think that changes things, and I mean I'll harp it all day in the subreddit. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but I'll take it all day that every draft's different. You just gotta stay fluid and be on your toes.
Anytime you think your draft is going to be completely predictable, just start the draft. And every single time there are picks that are outliers, and whether they're good picks, bad picks, doesn't matter. The picks get made that you go, whoa, I didn't see that coming. So, and Adam makes a great point. That 2014 class was the infusion that we needed. We needed it so bad because there was nothing bridging the gap from the top-tier elite wide receivers to the turds. It was 5 guys and, Torrey Smith. There wasn't a lot in between there. You know, it's 5, 6 guys, and then you start dropping to, like I said, Torrey Smith, Michael Floyd, guys like that, and there wasn't anything in the middle. And now we've got this group of 6, 7, 8 wideouts that are bridging that gap, and for good reason. They're young and they're damn good.
Yeah, and with that, I think we'll move on to our submitted questions for the week. And our first one comes from @HallsGene. Is Lance Briggs done? I mean, yeah. I mean,
He's not even on a team.
Yeah, that ship has sailed.
It's
Is he
rest
old?
in peace.
He was so good for so long, man.
34.
Yeah, 34
No.
years old. He
It's
was
not
oh
happening.
man, Briggs and Urlacher, dude. Oh my God, they were good for
Oh.
a minute. But yeah,
Urlacher was such a
Briggs.
stud.
Yeah, but that it's over, man. That ship sailed. It's nice player. He was on a lot of my teams for a while. Not anymore, man. He might get a run somewhere. Somebody might have this crushing injury and pick up Lance Briggs and throw him in. I kind of really doubt it. But as far as dynasty play, never again.
No, not a chance. And I feel like with that, we'll move on to our next question. Comes from @Famorians, Brian over at the FF Couch Coach crew. And he asks what to do with Hyde. Thought he was getting value in the 6th round of a PPR startup. Now I'm not sure what to do. I think he's a great grab in the 6th round of a startup. Absolutely. To me, Hyde is still I would value him right around 105, 106, something like that. I'm still a huge fan of Hyde, and I think he's gonna produce this year. Even if the rest of the offense is pretty crap, the fact that Kaepernick is a threat to run is going to open up running lanes for Hyde. Hyde's going to produce, and his value is only going to increase.
I mean, I don't know what draft this guy's in. I want to be in it because, I mean, ADP he's in like the 4th round. So if you can get him in the 6th round, I'm taking that all day. I don't really know. Hyde, another guy I just want to believe in, and I own in a few leagues, and I think he can be good. I'm worried about the defense, making it really impossible for them to get a good run game going because, I mean, I know a lot of people see that argument and go, okay, whatever. But, if you're down by 20 points, you're not going to run the ball very much. I mean, you're going to open it up, and he's an okay passing back. I mean, I don't know if that's his strong suit, but he caught a few balls last year, so I like him. I mean, if the value's there, I'll take any player, honestly. But I think he's young. He's 23. It's not over for Carlos Hyde. And if you're getting him in the 6th round, take him in the 5th round if he's there. So.
Yeah, it's only just begun for Carlos Hyde. That's a great snag, and I love that his value's depressed right now due to situation. And yeah, the Niners aren't good, man. They had a shitty offseason. Things change. Like I said, situation is much more fluid than talent. And Carlos Hyde has a ton of talent. So if you're getting him anywhere inside the top 12 or 15 running backs, it's a win. It's a win. So great snag. Keep him on your roster. Don't trade him. You're not going to trade him for what he's worth. You got him at a nice price. Be very, very happy about that.
Yeah, I took him with like a 6th or 7th round startup pick as a rookie when his situation was a lot cloudier. So when he's actually got the starting job, I'd call that a win. And we'll move on to Famorian's second question. Would you be willing to give up the red-hot A-Rob or Devontae Adams for Sammy in PPR? And I feel like we all just pretty effectively talked up A-Rob. And I, in most leagues, would be willing to trade A-Rob and Devontae Adams to get Sammy Watkins. And we've all heard me rant about Sammy Watkins, but the talent is transcendent.
You can't see me. I'm shaking my head in agreement. I promise. That's for sure. I'd take Sammy all day for Devontae and A-Rob. I mean, Sammy's like, sure, the QB situation's terrible, but is he 20? He's 23, 22? I don't know exactly how old he is, but it's going to get better. And he's an excellent player. I mean, it doesn't matter if I was throwing him the ball. If you're open, I can get you the ball. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. I mean, it's going to get to Sammy Watkins. And I actually think, I mean, he had a great year last year. Kyle Orton was throwing him, tossing the rock. I think he's going to have another good year. I don't think it's going to be his best of his career, but over the entire span of his career, he's going to be amazing. And if it's a major buy low right now, because I don't know what happened, but I've seen some crazy trades for Sammy Watkins where people are doing crazy things, and I don't like it, and I want some of it. So give me Sammy Watkins right there.
Yeah, easy. That's an easy deal. For me, I'd give up either. I'd give up both. And I love A-Rob, but if somebody came to me, and I have A-Rob and Devontae in conjunction with one another in several leagues, and if somebody knocked on my door with that, instant accept. Sammy Watkins will be elite one day. It may not be tomorrow, but it's going to happen. So, definitely.
Yeah, the bad QB argument's getting kind of old for me. I mean, Calvin Johnson didn't used to have a good QB. He made his QB good. Who did AJ Green still doesn't have a very good QB. Who did Josh Gordon have at QB? Who did Demaryius Thomas used to have at QB? You know, they still all managed to figure it out. Sammy Watkins is that same level of talent. He may not calling him Calvin might be a little bit of a stretch, but every other one of them, that's pretty close talent-wise. And so I'm sure he's more than capable of figuring it out too. He can make a quarterback. And we'll move on to our next question. Comes from @mpizzy145. First pick ever, new dynasty. Who's the best wide receiver over the next 5 seasons? Dez, Antonio Brown, Julio, Jordy, and first of all, I don't think Jordy belongs in that conversation if you're starting a dynasty league. I mean, it's a 30-year-old wide receiver. I'm not taking him at the first pick. I'm not taking him in the first round. In the startup, I'm not taking him in the second round. And if I'm at the 10 or the third.
Let's just get it out there.
He's a fantastic wide receiver, but not a name I'm looking for in Dynasty. But if I've got the first overall pick, I'm taking Odell Beckham Jr. He's a 22-year-old wide receiver. His points per game leaves plenty of room for regression. I've argued why I think Odell Beckham is the best Dynasty asset right now. I don't need to do it again. He's the 101 for me.
You know, for me, if we're just talking over the next 5 years, I don't know, man. All these guys are so close together. You know, Dez, AB, Julio. Who are we leaving out here? AJ. We're leaving out AJ, who for some reason the community is taking a shit on, and it just makes me mad. Mike and Odell. You can go with any of them, man. Go with any one of them. If we're talking over the next 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised to see any one of these guys be the PPR number one. Just, man, toss Jordy out. He's too old. But take the guy you like best. You're not going to miss. You're not going to miss with any of these top-tier wideouts. Julio's a little bit younger than, if I'm not mistaken, than Dez and AJ and AB. So,
Brown's the youngest there. I think Brown's 25.
No. Really?
Pretty sure.
If Antonio Brown's 25, my God, I'd take Antonio Brown. I thought he was like 27.
I think Antonio's the oldest.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong.
It wouldn't be the first time.
I love it when Drew is wrong.
July 10th, 1988.
Wow, I am super
27.
wrong. He is 27. Look at that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you're not going to miss with one of these guys. You're just not. Take one of them and take it to the bank. Take the player you like the best, the guy that is your favorite out of this bunch, and go with it, and be happy about it.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. I mean, Jordy doesn't belong in that group. I think you should have OBJ and Evans in the conversation. I think if I had the first pick, I'm trading back to like 6, and I'll just let everyone else decide for me, because you're not losing anything with these guys, and you can pick up value, which is, and this is a question that comes up daily. You know, who do I pick? They're all the same. I mean, not the same, but you know, they're all on the same level, and I'll take Julio. He's my 101. If I had a gun in my head and I had to pick 101, but you can't go wrong at all. Julio's younger. I think he has a younger, better quarterback. I think he has less questions. Dez has his Romo with his back. Dez has his diva problems, which is what I want no part of. But that's me. I like to insulate myself from risk. I know you guys are a bit more risky, which is cool. You probably get the biscuit a little more than I do. Yeah, I like AB, PPR, Machine, OBJ. I'll take him in one. That's why you diversify. But yeah, I love it. I think Evans is great. I mean, he could be #1 dynasty asset next year. I'm calling it right now. If he puts together another year, that's good. As good as last year. He's younger. He's a year younger than OBJ. I mean, that's another year of production that I'm all about. So that's me. But yeah, you can't go wrong. Trade back, get some value somewhere else.
Evans is damn close to it right now. And Evans has that thing that you can't teach. Oh, 6'5", 230. You can't learn to be 6'5", 230. So this whole tier, it's just a fantastic tier, and it's a nice time. It is a very nice time to be doing a dynasty startup right now, because we're just, awash in young wide receivers. It's just great. If somebody said, who do you think will score the most over the next 5 years, that's Antonio Brown for me, Mr. Consistency. He doesn't have that, 15, 18 Dez Bryant touchdown ceiling, but he just does it and does it and does it, and you just can't keep ignoring it. But, man, can't say it enough. Go with your gut, dude.
Yeah, so I was super wrong on Antonio Brown's age. Oops. But to me, the biggest reason why I would be passing on Green and Brown and Dez is if you're looking at a 5-year window, that puts them all at their age 32 season. If you're looking at 30 as a potential age of decline, that's 2 seasons where they could look at a serious drop-off. Whereas if you take Evans or OBJ, they're just hitting their prime at the end of that 5 years. That's part of the reason I would be looking at taking them. And if you go Julio, he's age 31 season. That's a little less risky. But Julio's also got the chronic foot problem. If this last surgery doesn't hold, then he might not even see 5 years. And I'm not sitting here predicting that Julio's going to have a short career, because chances are that the surgery will hold and he's going to be a stud for a long time. But none of them are just free and clear, no question marks. All right, and with that, that's going to do it for our questions for the week. And I don't have a rant of the week because I'm actually going to pass it off to Adam. He's our guest, so I feel like y'all have heard me rant enough. Adam, rant for us. What do you got?
All right, I had a few things, actually, because I thought this might happen, so I wanted to be ready. One thing is, don't put keeper questions in the subreddit, because it's not for that. And don't ask why, just don't do it. If you don't know the subreddit, it's reddit.com/dynastyff. It's kind of shitty, but I love it, and it's a good place to get some advice. My second thing was, new thing for me, if somebody sends you a shitty trade offer, don't blow them up. Don't, tell them to go die, to call them, whatever communist dictator that you want that week, whatever is in your fancy. Just say, this is not on value for me. This is what I would like, and maybe get a dialogue going. I've gotten bad offers. We've all gotten bad offers. Don't post it on Twitter and try to make fun of some guy. Just make it in your favor. Be nice, because you might need that guy someday. So that's really my number one thing. Just, it all comes down to one word. Really, don't be a butthole. It's obvious. I mean, we're all people. There's somebody on the other side of that computer screen. They might be an asshole, but there's nothing you can do about that. You just gotta live your life and move on. So that's all I got. I guess that's more of like a positive like encouragement than a rant, but it's late. It's like 2:30, so
It's poignant.
yeah, it's poignant.
Now, when you're with your buddies and they send you a shitty trade offer,
Oh yeah,
that's a little different.
yeah, burn that MFR to the ground.
That's
but,
okay, good. I just want to make sure because I may not have been following protocol when
Yes,
Patrick sends me awful trade offer after awful trade offer. I feel like I need to send him a little something back to let him know how I feel.
Yeah.
So, but I get you. Yeah, in leagues where I get shitty trade offers and I don't really know the guy, yeah, don't do that.
I've done it. I used to do it a lot, and then I realized that maybe I'll need this guy. So I don't know. My other thing was, if I ask you about a player that I want, don't tell me that you're not selling him because everyone has a price. So that's another thing that bothers the shit out of me. And that's it. That's over.
You say that, but I've been in leagues with people that will legitimately not sell people, regardless of price. I've come after guys willing to pay just about anything, and they're not even picking up the phone for certain players. It's a terrible move, and I don't agree with it, but some people are just so delusional that that's where they're at. And I just want to say that this has been by far the calmest, most peaceful rant. It's almost soothing, the tone you took with it. I don't feel riled up. I don't feel like I need to attack anybody. It's good. I like it.
Yeah, I'm sorry to disappoint on the anger on the rant.
I liked it.
Nah.
Yeah.
For once, we're going to end the show with low blood pressure. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I don't think the lack of anger is a bad thing. I think once in a while we can go out on a positive note. Especially, we had a good time tonight, so why not?
Perfect.
All right, so I think that it's about time to call it a night. You guys have any last parting shots for us?
I just shout out GNB League. That's all I gotta say. They wanted me to shout out. I'm doing a shout out. One of my good league, my contract league that you all hate. Contract.
Ew.
It's a blast. It's so
gross.
But it's a fun league.
We don't do contracts. We don't do double player pools.
Yeah, I do all that. So if you need help, hit me up on Twitter.
Never. No, I respect the shit out of the guys that do that stuff. I just look at it and I just see a bunch of numbers and I'm just like, I'm gonna go back over here to my 12-teamer and just do simple stuff with my snake drafts and keep everything status quo.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's been a blast. For everybody who doesn't know, Adam is one of the new writers over at DLF. If you're not subscribed, get a subscription. Check out his work over there because you're going to need to check out Tyler's work too. Seriously, get on it. These guys are killing it, and you need to get on the train before it leaves the station. And that's about all we got for tonight. So thanks for joining us. This has been the Dynasty Playbook, where we're riding this hype train all the way to hell. I've been your host, Drew. You can find me on Twitter at DrewDotson NFL. With me has been my co-host, Tyler. You can find him on Twitter at HBombIDP. And with us has been our excellent co-host, Adam. You can find him on Twitter at AdamTZ. Thanks for joining us. Adam, thanks for being our co-host tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a blast. We'll see you all again next week.